The Duke does not need a bride. Hector Bellingham said behind the half-closed library door. He needs a name respectable enough to make London forget the woman who claims he promised himself to her. Theodora Fairbourne stopped in the passage with her mother's unfinished bridal veil balanced across both hands. 6 inches of ivory bobbin lace hung from the narrow cushion, delicate enough to tremble when she breathed. Beyond the door, her father gave a low, uncertain reply. And you believe Augusta's name will do that. Augusta's beauty will make the choice believable. Your family's standing will make it useful. Hector paused. Uncertainty can be made useful, Sir Reginald. Most people will accept whichever answer reaches them first. Theodora lowered her eyes to the lace. Every third leaf curved toward a stem worked 11 years ago by her mother's fingers. One leaf bent inward too sharply because the thread had once crossed beneath the wrong pair of bobbins. Theodora had corrected that section at dawn. She had not corrected the rest. A sound came from inside the library, the soft scrape of paper against polished wood. His Grace is expected within the hour, Sir Reginald said. Then the family must appear united before he arrives. Hector's voice remained smooth. Do not offer him confusion. Offer him a solution. Theodora stepped away before the door could open. The passage at Fairbourne Grange smelled faintly of beeswax and last night's fire. Morning light reached through the tall windows in narrow bars, revealing dust no servant had yet disturbed. She carried the veil into the small morning room at the rear of the house and shut the door with care. Her workbox stood open upon the table. Lady Blanche had ordered it moved there before breakfast, declaring that Augusta would need the veil completed if the Duke proved sensible. Theodora set the cushion down and lifted the velvet lining from the bottom of the box. Beneath it lay a folded memorandum in her mother's hand. For Theodora, with the bobbins she learned upon. The veil is hers, whether she chooses marriage or not. The ink had faded, but the words had not. Her mother had written them during the final winter of her life, when illness had already made her hand unsteady. Theodora touched the signature once, then replaced the paper beneath the lining. Someone else had touched it recently. The fold ran in the wrong direction. Her gaze moved to the bobbins arranged around the cushion. 2 old bone bobbins were missing. They had been worn smooth near the neck and marked with small numbers. In their place sat 2 newer pieces, pale and almost untouched. The thread crossing the damaged leaf had also been disturbed, as though someone had tried to copy the pattern without understanding the order of the strands. Theodora heard the morning room door open behind her. You are still working? Lady Blanche asked. The Duke may arrive before the border is finished. Then he will discover that lace obeys time more faithfully than families do. Blanche entered in lilac silk, her expression already arranged for company. She had been Sir Reginald's wife for 9 years and Theodora's mother in no sense that mattered. Do not be difficult today. Whose veil is this? Theodora asked. Blanche stopped. It belongs to the family. My mother left it to me. Your mother left many unfinished things. The words were spoken lightly. They still found their mark. Theodora laid one hand over the memorandum beneath the lining. Did you send this box to London last autumn? Blanche's eyes narrowed. Why would you ask that? 2 old bobbins are missing. Someone has handled the pattern. Threads break. Servants misplace things. Servants do not replace numbered bone bobbins with new ones. Blanche picked up a lace edge and examined it without permission. You see meaning in everything, because no one has given you anything more important to do. Theodora removed the lace from her hand. Then perhaps you should not trust me with Augusta's bridal veil. You will finish it because your sister has a future to secure. And mine? Blanche's smile was almost kind. At 28, Theodora, usefulness is a future. A carriage sounded on the drive before Theodora could answer. Blanche turned toward the window. He is early. The household changed around the arrival. Doors opened. Footmen crossed the hall. Augusta's laugh sounded from the staircase, followed by her mother's quick instructions about posture and expression. Theodora looked once more at the altered pattern. Then she lifted the work frame and carried it toward the drawing room. Leopold Wycliffe, Duke of Aldermere, stood beneath the Fairbourne portraits with the stillness of a man who did not need to raise his voice to alter a room. He wore a dark blue coat, black boots, and no visible ornament beyond a signet ring. Sir Reginald hovered beside him. Augusta sat near the fireplace in white muslin, her pale curls arranged to appear effortless. Hector was nowhere in sight, though his calling card lay upon the writing desk beside a pencil sketch of a falcon crest. Theodora noticed at once that one feather was missing from the left wing. "Your Grace," Sir Reginald said, "my younger daughter, Miss Augusta Fairbourne." Leopold bowed. Augusta smiled with practiced softness. "We were so distressed to hear of Lady Verena's misunderstanding." "Were you?" he asked. The question was courteous. The room cooled around it. Blanche moved quickly. "Naturally, we would never wish an honorable man to suffer because a woman mistook kindness for intention." Leopold looked at her. "You know the circumstances well for someone outside them." Blanche's fan paused. Sir Reginald cleared his throat. Mr. Bellingham explained that a clear family alliance might quiet the matter. "Mr. Bellingham has explained my needs to several people without consulting me." Leopold's gaze moved to Augusta. "And what has he explained to you, Miss Augusta?" Augusta's confidence faltered. "Only that your name has been treated unfairly, and that marriage to you would repair it. I would never presume." She looked toward her mother before adding, "But I would not refuse duty." Theodora saw Leopold notice the glance. She also saw him notice that Augusta had not answered for herself. Blanche began. "Augusta has always understood what rank requires." "Rank requires less obedience than people claim in its name," Leopold said. Theodora entered before she could decide whether courage had brought her or exhaustion had finally made caution impossible. Every face turned. The unfinished veil rested across her hands. Blanche's expression tightened. "Theodora, this is not the time. It appears to be the only time anyone intends to choose a bride." Silence followed. Leopold looked at her, then at the veil, then at the workbox visible through the open morning room door. "And you are?" "Miss Theodora Fairbourne." Augusta gave a brittle laugh. "My elder sister." The addition sounded like a correction society had forgotten to request. Leopold's attention remained on Theodora. "Do you also understand what rank requires?" "I understand what families require when rank arrives at the door." "And what is that?" "A woman willing to become an answer before anyone asks whether she agrees with the question." Sir Reginald stepped forward. "Theodora." She did not look at him. "I heard you needed a bride," she said to the Duke. Augusta inhaled sharply. Blanche's fan snapped closed. Leopold's eyes narrowed, not with anger but concentration. "Did you?" "I heard you needed a respectable name attached to yours quickly enough to defeat another woman's claim." "That is not the same as needing a bride. No, it is a negotiation disguised as one." Something shifted in his expression. "Are you offering yourself?" "I am offering terms, not sacrifice." never willingly. A faint curve touched his mouth. It was not warmth. It was the first sign that she had surprised him. Maybe, you, Augusta Rose, your grace. Leopold did not look away from Theodora. Maybe, he repeated, if the terms are yours, and if you are free to refuse them. Theodora felt the room turn against her, and, for the first time, did not move to make it comfortable. Leopold stepped closer to the work frame, but did not touch it. Who began the veil? My mother, for your sister, for me. His gaze dropped to the disturbed leaf. And who has been copying it? Theodora looked toward Hector's calling card and the falcon missing one feather. That, she said, is what I intend to discover. Leopold followed her gaze. His expression hardened. Then, before anyone in this house discusses marriage again, someone will tell me who taught the Fairbournes that my scandal could be turned into their opportunity. Leopold's question remained in the drawing room after everyone else had stopped breathing comfortably. Sir Reginald looked toward Lady Blanche. Augusta looked toward the carpet. Theodora looked at Hector Bellingham's calling card and the falcon missing one feather. Mr. Bellingham arrived yesterday, she said. He spent nearly 2 hours with my father in the library. This morning, Lady Blanche took my mother's veil from my workbox and ordered me to finish it for Augusta. Blanche's face sharpened. You make household instruction sound sinister. Only when it arrives before the supposed bridegroom has chosen a bride. Leopold turned toward Sir Reginald. Did Mr. Bellingham tell you I had authorized a Fairbourne marriage? Not authorized, precisely. Then precisely what did he say? Sir Reginald adjusted his cuffs, buying time no one granted him. He said Lady Verina's claim had made your position difficult. He believed a swift and respectable alliance might prevent further injury. To whom? Leopold asked. To all concerned. That phrase usually means the person speaking has not decided whose injury matters. Theodora saw Sir Reginald flinch. Leopold glanced toward the open morning room. Miss Theodora, may we speak there? Lady Blanche stepped forward at once. Alone, with a companion and the door open. Leopold's tone made clear that propriety would be observed, not used as a barrier. Mrs. Vale was summoned from the breakfast parlour. She settled in a chair in the adjoining room, with her knitting, and an expression that suggested she intended to hear everything. Theodora carried the work frame to the small table near the window. Leopold entered after her and left the door wide enough for every sentence to travel. He did not sit until she did. That courtesy unsettled her more than command might have done. Lady Verena Datchford claims I made her a private promise last autumn, he said. There is no letter. There is no witness who heard me speak such a promise. Yet 2 tradeswomen received wedding orders bearing my family name. A chapel clerk entered an inquiry in the Wycliffe name. 3 guests were encouraged to believe an understanding existed. Encouraged by whom? Each gives a different answer. A secretary, an agent, a gentleman acting discreetly. No one who can be held to a single identity. Precisely. Theodora looked down at the disturbed leaf on the veil. Then the claim was not built to survive proof. It was built to survive denial. Leopold's gaze sharpened. Explain. Each piece is ordinary enough to excuse. A tradeswoman may misunderstand an order. A chapel clerk may record a family name too readily. A guest may repeat what she hoped to hear. If you deny one piece, the others remain. If you deny all of them, society says a powerful man is crushing a woman who trusted him. You have considered this quickly. I have spent years watching people arrange a room so that only one person appears unreasonable. Something in his expression changed, not pity, recognition. Mr. Bellingham suggested a Fairbourne marriage before I stated what I intended to do, he said. And when you asked which Miss Fairbourne, he looked at my father. You noticed. People look toward authority when they are uncertain, and toward partners when they already know the answer. Leopold leaned back slightly. Why did he not look at Lady Blanche? Perhaps because she was not the person whose agreement mattered financially. And yours? Mine has rarely mattered at all. The words came more quietly than she intended. Leopold did not soften them with reassurance. What has your family told you about your place here? He asked. Theodora touched one of the old bobbins. That I am useful. Nothing more. Useful is what people say when they wish to praise service without acknowledging sacrifice. His eyes moved to the lace. You repaired that leaf this morning. She looked up. How did you know? The thread is cleaner there. The tension differs from the older work. You understand lace? No. I understand repair. It rarely matches the original damage. The answer stayed with her. Leopold indicated the altered section, but did not touch it. You said someone copied the pattern. I said someone tried. 2 old bobbins are missing. The thread was recrossed badly. My mother numbered those pieces because she taught me on them. Someone replaced them with newer bone. Could Lady Blanche have done it? She does not know how to work bobbin lace. Could Augusta? She has never wished to learn. Then someone outside the household handled the workbox. Theodora hesitated. Lady Blanche sent it to London last autumn. She claimed the threads required assessment. Leopold's face hardened. The same autumn, Lady Verena says, I promised marriage. The connection entered the room between them. Did you know the veil had gone? He asked. Not until this morning. Why was that hidden from you if the box belongs to you? Theodora lifted the velvet lining and drew out her mother's memorandum. She unfolded it and placed it before him. Leopold read the faded lines without taking the paper from her hand. This is clear, he said. Clear things are not always respected when the person holding them has little power. Then, power must be made to respect them. That sounds dangerously close to rescue. Would you prefer indifference? I would prefer to be asked what help I want before it is arranged around me. Leopold held her. I am asking. Theodora had not expected him to answer so directly. Outside the open door, Mrs. Vale's needles clicked once and then became still. If there is to be a courtship, Theodora said, it must be public and temporary. 3 weeks. Long enough to examine the claims. Short enough that no one may call delay a promise. Agreed. No engagement announcement without my consent. Agreed. No inquiry for a special license. No chapel arrangement. No household order in my name. Leopold's expression did not change, but his attention intensified. You distrust speed. I distrust decisions made quickly when women are expected to carry them, permanently. Fair. I read any settlement before my father does. You shall, and if I withdraw, Augusta is not offered in my place. A beat of silence followed. You are protecting her. I am refusing to let my freedom become her punishment. Leopold nodded once. Agreed. One more condition. Name it. If you learn something dangerous, you tell me. You do not decide that withholding truth is protection. He looked at her for several seconds. That may be the most difficult term. Then it is the most necessary. Agreed. Theodora folded the memorandum and returned it beneath the lining. You accept easily for a man known to be cold. I am cold when people mistake urgency for authority. And now? Now I am listening to a woman who has named the difference. The smallest warmth entered his voice. It was restrained enough to be believable and dangerous enough to unsettle her. Leopold rose. We should tell your family. You mean you should tell them? No, we should. In the drawing room, Augusta stood by the window, with Lady Blanche's hand resting on her shoulder. Sir Reginald had moved Hector's calling card from the desk, but the falcon sketch remained. Leopold stopped before the family. I have no understanding with Miss Augusta Fairbourne. Augusta's face drained of colour. Blanche began to speak, but he continued. For the next 3 weeks, I will court Miss Theodora Fairbourne publicly. There is no engagement. There will be no special license inquiry, no chapel arrangement, and no announcement without her consent. Sir Reginald stared at Theodora as if she had altered the laws of inheritance. Your Grace, such matters are ordinarily discussed between families. Then your family may begin by discussing them with the woman concerned. Leopold turned to Augusta. You will not be offered as a substitute if your sister withdraws. Augusta looked first surprised, then wounded. Did she demand that? Yes, Theodora said. Why? Augusta asked. Because I will not purchase freedom with yours. For one unguarded second, Augusta had no answer. A footman entered, carrying a folded invoice upon a silver tray, delivered from London for Lady Blanche. Blanche reached for it, but Leopold spoke first. Open it. It is addressed to me, and connected to my name, if the seal is any indication. The copied falcon on the wax lacked one feather. Blanche broke the seal with stiff fingers. The invoice came from Madame Lenoir, a Bond Street modiste. Bridal lace for Miss A. Fairbourne, future Duchess of Aldermere. Pattern supplied by client. Authorization received under Wycliffe crest. Augusta stepped forward. A. Fairbourne means me. Theodora took the paper and examined the date. Her pulse slowed rather than quickened. This order was placed 6 days ago. Leopold looked at her. Before I came to Sussex. Before you chose any Fairbourne at all. Theodora turned the invoice over. On the back, a smaller hand had added one instruction. Retain the original pattern until the correct lady is confirmed. She read it aloud. No one moved. Leopold's eyes went to the altered veil, then to the false falcon sketch. Someone has not been preparing a wedding, he said. Someone has been preparing interchangeable brides. London had already decided that a Fairbourne woman would become Duchess of Aldermere. It had not decided which one. By the time the family carriage stopped before Wycliffe House, 3 days later, that uncertainty had become entertainment. Theodora felt it in the way the footman's eyes moved from Augusta's pale blue gown to her own grey silk. She heard it in the slight pause before he announced. Sir Reginald Fairbourne, Lady Blanche Fairbourne, Miss Fairbourne, and Miss Augusta Fairbourne. The order was correct. The emphasis was not. Augusta entered the drawing room first. Lady Blanche had arranged it so neatly that anyone watching might believe beauty naturally led and usefulness naturally followed. Theodora stepped inside, with Mrs. Vale several paces behind her, and found nearly every face turned toward the door. Wycliffe House was all polished mahogany, candlelight, and portraits of men who appeared to have inherited certainty along with their titles. Leopold stood near the fireplace, speaking with a dowager countess. He ended the conversation the moment he saw Theodora. Then he crossed the room. Augusta's smile brightened. Leopold stopped before Theodora. Miss Fairbourne. Augusta's expression held for half a second too long. Theodora dipped into a curtsy. Your Grace, he offered his arm. You are expected at dinner. I had assumed every invited guest was expected. Some are merely anticipated. His gaze remained steady. You were expected. The distinction was quiet enough to preserve etiquette and clear enough to alter the room. Theodora placed her hand upon his sleeve. He did not cover it with his own. He simply escorted her toward the center of the drawing room while conversation resumed in lower voices around them. "You have made your position unmistakable," she murmured. "That was the purpose. You may have made mine less comfortable. Would you prefer I had escorted your sister?" "No." "Then discomfort is not always an argument against action. That sounds like something a duke says when other people bear the discomfort." His eyes shifted toward her. "Then I shall attempt to bear my share." Before she could answer, Lady Blanche approached with a smile sharpened for company. "Theodora has always preferred severe colors, Your Grace. Grey allows a woman to avoid misunderstanding." Leopold looked at Theodora's gown rather than at Blanche. "Grey requires more confidence than ornament. It gives the eye nowhere else to go." Blanche's smile tightened. Theodora felt the dangerous warmth of being seen and refused to let it make her careless. "Lady Blanche is correct about one thing," she said. "I do dislike misunderstanding." "Then tonight may prove educational," Leopold replied. At dinner he placed Theodora on his right. Augusta sat farther down the table between a young viscount and a widowed baron who spoke of his stables as if horses were the only creatures capable of loyalty. Lady Blanche tried to repair the seating with conversation. She mentioned Augusta's skill at the pianoforte, Augusta's invitations in Sussex, and Augusta's fondness for charitable work. Theodora answered questions about Fairbourne Grange, the damaged east roof, and the spring roads. When one elderly gentleman asked whether the repairs had proved costly, Sir Reginald began to answer for her. Leopold looked across the table. "Miss Fairbourne mentioned the roof. When we spoke in Sussex, I should like to hear her estimate." Theodora turned to him. He remembered, not the veil, not the scandal, but a practical remark she had made while her father complained about masonry. "The western flashing was replaced unnecessarily," she said. "The true damage began where the lead had lifted near the north chimney. Repairing the visible stain before the source would have cost twice as much by autumn." Leopold's mouth almost curved. A useful principle, only if one prefers causes to appearances. Across the table, Lady Blanche lowered her wineglass with more force than necessary. Theodora understood the gesture. She had been permitted to be useful in private. Being heard in public was another matter. The first course had barely been removed when Lady Verena Datchford arrived. She entered late enough to be noticed and composed enough to make lateness appear intentional. Ivory, silk, softened the severity of her dark hair. An emerald secured the lace fichu crossing her shoulders. Theodora saw the border before she fully saw the woman. Repeating leaves. Every third leaf bent inward too sharply before returning to the stem. Her mother's error, her mother's missing pattern, her mother's hands copied onto another woman's claim. Theodora's fingers tightened once against the tablecloth. Leopold noticed. He followed her gaze to the lace, and the stillness in him deepened. Lady Verena greeted the hostess, then turned toward him with a smile meant to imply familiarity. "Your Grace, I feared I had missed your announcement. There has been none. How restrained of you." Her gaze moved to Theodora, though perhaps restraint has become unnecessary. The insult was delicate enough to pass as observation. Several guests listened without appearing to do so. Theodora met Verena's eyes. "Your lace is unusual." Verena touched the emerald pin. "It was chosen for me." "By whom?" "A woman should know better than to interrogate another woman's dress at dinner. A bride should know who commissioned her bridal lace." The table quieted. Augusta looked up sharply. Lady Blanche's fan stopped moving. Verena's smile became thinner. You speak as though the matter concerns you. It concerns anyone whose name has been attached to a wedding order without consent. The Duke once admired this pattern. Leopold set down his glass. I did not. Verena turned toward him. Your message called it fit for a bride. I sent no message. A gentleman who knew how your private affairs were managed delivered it. Theodora heard the precision inside the vagueness. Not a secretary, not a named agent, a man who appeared to belong near power. What gentleman? She asked. Verena's gaze cooled. A lady does not demand the names of those who serve a duke. Then perhaps the gentleman counted upon that. A faint murmur passed down the table. Near the far end, a well-dressed man known for supplying society paragraphs lowered his eyes to the card beside his plate and made a small notation. He did not ask a question. He did not need to. London would receive whatever version survived the evening. Verena turned back to Leopold. You may deny the messenger, but you cannot deny that the pattern was associated with your house. I deny both, he said. No bridal pattern has been authorized in my name. No promise has been made to you. The words were public and final. Yet he did not use rank to shame her. His voice remained controlled, which made the denial more severe. Verena's color changed beneath her powder. Then Miss Fairbourne has been given a dangerous impression. Which Miss Fairbourne? Augusta asked before anyone else could. The question revealed too much. Verena looked from Augusta to Theodora and smiled. That seems to be the difficulty. Theodora felt the room lean toward spectacle. Augusta's completed beauty, Theodora's unexpected position. Verena's lace, one duke, 3 possible stories. There is no difficulty in the present arrangement, Leopold said. I am formally courting Miss Theodora Fairbourne. I am not engaged. She has agreed to nothing beyond 3 weeks of public courtship. He turned slightly, enough that the room could see his attention settle upon Theodora. Her answer remains her own. The society writer's pencil moved again. Theodora felt every eye upon her, waiting for gratitude, triumph, or embarrassment. She gave them none. Then accuracy has survived dinner, she said. A rare achievement. A few guests smiled. Even Leopold's expression softened for an instant. Lady Verena did not. Courtship can be withdrawn, she said. So can false claims, Theodora replied. Dinner resumed, but the room never recovered its ease. Later, while guests moved toward the drawing room, Leopold approached Theodora near the library door. Mrs. Vale stood within sight. You recognize the pattern, he said. Yes, the exact error, the same forced inward curve. It was on my mother's veil before I repaired one section. Whoever supplied Lady Verena's lace copied a flawed pricking. And Lady Blanche sent your workbox to London last autumn. Yes. Leopold opened the library door. There is something you should see. On the desk lay an unprinted newspaper proof. The heading announced the forthcoming marriage of Leopold Wycliffe, Duke of Aldermere, to Miss A. Fairbourne. No first name appeared. Beneath the text, the printer had marked the order date. Theodora read it twice. This was placed before you came to Sussex. Before I met you. Before anyone could know whether you would choose Augusta. Or you. She looked at the blank space where certainty should have been. They did not need to know. Leopold's gaze hardened, because either name could be used, and any correction would make the woman denied appear guilty. A footman entered, carrying a small folded note for Leopold. He read it, then handed it to her. The printer had stopped the proof from going to press, but the authorization card remained at the shop. It bore the Wycliffe falcon, with one feather missing from the left wing, the same false crest Theodora had seen beside Hector's calling card at Fairbourne Grange. Leopold looked toward the drawing room, where Lady Verina's laughter rose above the music. "Tomorrow," he said, "we speak to the printer." Theodora folded the proof carefully. "And tonight? Tonight we allow the person who arranged this to believe the first trap succeeded." She looked at him. "You are asking me to remain in the room while London decides what I am." "No," his voice lowered. "I am asking whether you choose to remain." The difference mattered. Theodora placed the proof back upon the desk. "Then I choose to stay." Together they returned to the drawing room, where Lady Verina wore her mother's mistake, and half of London waited to see which woman would break first. The printer's shop stood in a narrow lane off Fleet Street, where the windows were filmed with ink dust and the air smelled of paper, oil, and damp wool. Leopold arrived first with his secretary. Theodora followed in the Fairbourne carriage with Mrs. Vale, Lady Blanche, and Augusta, because Blanche had declared that no respectable family allowed an unmarried woman to investigate a false engagement without witnesses. Theodora suspected the real purpose was control. The printer, Mr. Harcourt, received them in a cramped back room lined with proof sheets and locked drawers. He bowed too often and looked at Leopold too little. "The notice was never printed, Your Grace," he said. "I stopped it the moment your secretary objected." "You stopped the final impression," Leopold replied. "You had already accepted the order, set the type, and prepared a proof." Mr. Harcourt's hands closed around each other. The authorization appeared proper. "Show it," Theodora said. Lady Blanche turned toward her. "You will allow His Grace to conduct his own inquiry." "The order names my family." Theodora met Leopold's gaze, and he asked me to help discover who arranged it. Leopold looked at the printer. "Show Miss Fairbourne the authorization." Mr. Harcourt opened a drawer and removed a stiff white card. The copied Wycliffe falcon had been drawn in black and stamped beneath with dark blue wax. The left wing lacked one feather. Theodora placed the card beside Hector Bellingham's calling card, which Leopold had brought from Fairbourne Grange. The same missing feather appeared in both sketches. "The lines are not identical," Augusta said quickly. "No," Theodora replied. "One was copied from the other, or both were copied from the same public image." Leopold removed his signet ring and pressed it into a small piece of sealing wax his secretary prepared. The true impression showed the falcon with both wings complete and reversed from the painted image seen on carriage panels and doors. "This was not taken from my seal," he said. "A seal reverses the design. This card reproduces the falcon as it appears to the eye." Mr. Harcourt paled. "I had no intention of deceiving anyone." "Intent is not the first question," Theodora said. "Who brought it?" "A gentleman." "Name?" Leopold asked. "He did not give one." "Then describe him." Mr. Harcourt hesitated. "Medium height, grey coat, educated voice." He spoke as if he had handled private matters for noble families before. Hector's manner entered the room without his body. Lady Blanche shifted beside the door. "Half the men in London would fit that description." "He also carried something," Mr. Harcourt said. "A bone-lace bobbin. He rolled it between his fingers while he waited." Theodora felt her attention narrow. "Did you see a marking?" 2 letters, H and B. Augusta, drew a sharp breath. Lady Blanche looked at her daughter, not at the printer. Leopold noticed. "Convenient initials," he said. "Too convenient," Theodora replied. Mr. Harcourt stared at her. "You think they were shown deliberately?" "A careful agent placing a false notice would not display an identifying object by accident." "Unless he wanted another man blamed," Leopold said. or wanted us to believe the clue was too obvious to be real. Theodora turned the authorization card over. On the back, a line had been written in a compressed hand. Leave the first name uncertain. Correction will appear as guilt. Her pulse slowed. This is the same method, she said. Every piece allows several stories. If Augusta is named, the Duke appears to have chosen her. If I am named, I appear to have displaced her. If the notice is corrected, the woman denied looks guilty of having forced it. Mr. Harcourt's expression changed from fear to shame. I thought the ambiguity was intended to protect a lady's privacy. It was intended to destroy whichever lady proved inconvenient, Theodora said. Leopold's gaze settled upon her, steady and unreadable. Can you identify the handwriting? He asked the printer. No, Your Grace, but the man said the same wording would be used by the modiste. Lady Blanche's fingers tightened around her reticule. It was cream satin embroidered with pale lilac thread. Near the clasp, 2 small initials appeared. L.B. Theodora looked at the embroidery, then at Blanche's gloves. They bore the same initials, stitched in the same hand. Blanche noticed her attention and lowered the reticule. We should leave, she said. This man has admitted he cannot identify anyone. He has identified a method, Theodora replied, and a connection to the modiste. Augusta looked toward her mother. You said the invoice came as a surprise. It did. Then why do you want to leave before we ask who brought the order? Blanche's face hardened. Because a printer's back room is no place for this family. Leopold spoke without raising his voice. Then we shall continue somewhere more respectable. Madame Lenoir's salon on Bond Street received them 2 hours later under the soft light of tall front windows. Bolts of silk stood behind glass-fronted cabinets, and fashion plates lay arranged upon a central table. Madame Lenoir was a widow in her 40s, with dark hair threaded by silver, and the composure of a woman. Accustomed to wealthy clients, pretending money erased confusion. She examined the copied crest card and immediately opened her ledger. The same token was presented to me, she said. A gentleman's agent paid half the commission in advance. Was he alone? Theodora asked. Madame Lenoir's eyes moved briefly toward Lady Blanche. No. The room changed. Blanche's voice sharpened. You are mistaken. I have not yet described the woman. Madame Lenoir turned to Theodora. She kept her veil lowered and did not speak. Her gloves were cream kid, embroidered with the initials L.B. Augusta stared at her mother's hands. Blanche wore pale grey gloves today, but the embroidery at the wrist remained visible beneath her sleeve. L.B. Initials are hardly proof, Blanche said. Many women possess them. The woman also knew when Miss Fairbourne's lace workbox had been sent from Sussex. Madame Lenoir continued. She corrected the gentleman. When he said September, she said it arrived in October, after the first frost damaged the lower orchard. Theodora remembered that frost. It had blackened the late pears at Fairbourne Grange and cracked the stone basin near the kitchen garden. Few people outside the household would know when it occurred. Augusta's voice came quietly. Mother, Blanche looked at Leopold. Your Grace, this is becoming an accusation based on a modiste's memory. No, Theodora said. It is becoming a question you keep refusing to answer. Madame Lenoir opened a locked cabinet and withdrew a brass token bearing the copied falcon. The missing feather was not the only flaw. A shallow groove ran along the edge as though the token had been cut from a larger engraved plate. The gentleman said this authorized 2 bridal borders, she explained. One for Lady Verena Datchford, one for Miss A. Fairbourne. 2? Augusta asked. Yes, and a third, Theodora said. Madame Lenoir consulted the ledger. Not a third bride's border. A trial pattern was ordered and delivered to the Fairbourne address in London. The distinction mattered. T did not mean Theodora. It meant trial. The letter had been designed to acquire meaning only if someone later needed to accuse her. Who accepted the delivery? Leopold asked. Madame Lenoir turned a page. A household servant signed only with an initial. Lady Blanche's composure faltered. That could be anyone. The delivery receipt notes that the servant carried a reticule matching the veiled lady's gloves. Madame Lenoir said, cream satin, lilac embroidery, initials L.B. Augusta, looked at the reticule in her mother's hand. You were there? I was protecting your future. The admission escaped before Blanche could contain it. Silence filled the salon. Augusta stepped back as if distance might alter the words. You said the veil came from the Duke. Mr. Bellingham said the pattern had been associated with Aldermere. He said preparations had to begin before Lady Verena's claim hardened. Did you know His Grace had authorized nothing? Theodora asked. Blanche lifted her chin. I knew respectable decisions are often prepared before they are announced. You mean women are prepared before men choose them? I mean families survive by acting before society closes its doors. Theodora felt the old pressure in the statement. Duty used as a lock. Fear used as a key. You sent my mother's workbox to London for assessment. You allowed its pattern to be copied. Blanche said nothing. Augusta's voice trembled. Was the order for me? It was for whichever Fairbourne the Duke could be made to choose. The truth seemed to strike Augusta more painfully than rejection would have done. She had not been selected. She had been made interchangeable. Leopold moved one step toward the table, but he did not take command of the room. Madame Lenoir, did the gentleman give any reason for retaining the original pattern? Yes, Your Grace, he said. The correct lady had not yet been confirmed. Theodora looked at Blanche's reticule, the false crest and the ledger. Then the wedding order was never meant to follow a choice. She turned toward Augusta. It was meant to create one. A maid entered from the front salon, carrying a narrow white box tied with blue ribbon. Delivered for Miss Augusta Fairbourne. Augusta did not reach for it. Madame Lenoir opened the accompanying note. Her face tightened before she handed it over. The message contained one sentence: wear the completed veil at the charitable exhibition, and the Duke will be forced to clarify. Theodora looked at the box. Inside, beneath the tissue, lay a finished bridal veil, worked in her mother's stolen pattern. The completed veil remained inside Madame Lenoir's white box during the carriage ride back to the Fairbourne house. Augusta held the box upon her lap, but did not touch the ribbon. Lady Blanche sat opposite her, rigid with the dignity of a woman who believed composure could reverse confession. Theodora watched the city pass beyond the glass and felt no triumph. The truth had not freed either sister. It had only revealed the shape of the cage. Leopold rode in his own carriage behind them, having agreed that the next step belonged inside the Fairbourne household. By the time they reached the house, he had sent word that he would call within the hour, with Mrs. Vale present and Madame Lenoir willing to witness the return of the workbox. Lady Blanche objected before the front door closed. This is unnecessary. You admitted the pattern was copied from my mother's lace, Theodora said. The box will be returned with everything that was inside it. You cannot summon a duke into a family dispute and call that independence. I did not summon him. I asked for witnesses. Augusta carried the white box into the drawing room and placed it on a side table as though it might contain something living. "Did you know I was not the only possible bride?" she asked her mother. Blanche removed her gloves. "I knew the situation required flexibility." "That isn't an answer. It is the only one that matters. His Grace needed to silence Lady Verena. Our family needed security, Mr. Bellingham understood that delay would ruin everyone." "Everyone except him," Theodora said. Blanche turned on her. "You are enjoying your importance far too much." "No, I am learning how much damage was required to keep me unimportant." Augusta looked down. For once, she did not defend her mother. When Leopold arrived, he entered with Mrs. Vale, Madame Lenoir, and his secretary. He greeted Sir Reginald, who had returned from his club in time to appear inconvenienced by facts he had chosen not to know. Theodora stood beside the central table. "I want the workbox returned here," she said. "The veil, the bobbins, every paper, every scrap of thread." Sir Reginald frowned. "Must this be conducted like a legal inventory?" "It would not be necessary if my property had not been removed without permission. Your property remains under my roof. It was given to me by my mother." Blanche gave a quiet laugh. "A sentimental claim." Theodora looked at her. "You found the memorandum beneath the lining." Blanche's face altered. "Barely. Enough." Leopold noticed. "What memorandum?" he asked. "My mother wrote that the veil and the bobbins were mine whether I married or not." Theodora kept her voice steady. "When I found it again in Sussex, the fold had been changed. Someone had read it." Augusta turned toward Blanche. "You knew. A scrap of paper does not govern a household." "No," Theodora said. "It only reveals who ignored a dead woman's last clear wish." Silence settled over the room. Sir Reginald looked away first. Blanche ordered a servant to bring the workbox. It arrived 10 minutes later, carried by a footman who placed it upon the table and withdrew. Theodora opened the lid. The unfinished veil lay folded around the narrow cushion. Beneath it were the newer bobbins, the old pins, and a bundle of threads she had not placed there. She lifted the velvet lining. The memorandum was gone. "Where is it?" she asked. Blanche's gaze did not move. "Perhaps you misplaced it. I showed it to the Duke 3 days ago." Leopold spoke quietly. "I read it," Madame Lenoir added, "and I heard Miss Fairbourne refer to it in my salon." Sir Reginald looked at his wife. "Blanche, it was fragile," she said. "I put it somewhere safe." "Where?" Theodora asked. "In my writing desk. Bring it." Blanche's mouth tightened. "You are becoming insolent." "No, I am becoming audible." Leopold did not intervene. He remained one step behind Theodora, exactly where she had asked him to stand. That restraint strengthened her more than an order would have done. Blanche left the room and returned with the folded memorandum. Theodora took it, examined the torn corner, and placed it beside the workbox. "2 old bobbins are still missing," she said. 2 new ones have replaced them." Augusta came closer. "Can you tell which are which?" "The old ones were worn smooth and numbered near the base. My mother taught me with them." Theodora lifted one of the newer pieces. "These have no wear and no marks." She searched beneath the cushion and found one old bobbin trapped under the lining. Near its base, a number had been carved into the bone, 473. This one was overlooked. Madame Lenoir leaned closer. "That may identify the workshop." Augusta looked at the unfinished veil, then at the completed one still sealed in the white box. "Did Mother know the pattern was yours?" she asked. "Yes," Theodora said. Blanche answered at the same time. "It belonged to the family." Augusta flinched at the contradiction. "And did you know the order might be used for either of us?" Blanche's silence deepened. Theodora saw the moment Augusta understood that her mother had not prepared a unique future for her. She had prepared a position that any suitable Fairbourne daughter could occupy. "I thought he chose me," Augusta said. No one pretended not to know whom she meant. "Hector told me the initials would protect the arrangement until the Duke could speak." "The initials protected the arranger," Theodora said. "Not you." Augusta's eyes filled, but she refused to cry before them. "Then why did he send the veil to me?" "Because he needs you to wear it before enough people," Leopold said. "Once society sees it, denial becomes cruelty and silence becomes admission." Augusta looked toward the white box. "If I do not wear it, everyone will think I was never chosen." Theodora's voice softened. "You were not chosen." Augusta's face tightened. "You don't have to sound pleased. I am not pleased. I am angry that you were taught a false choice was better than no choice at all." For the first time, Augusta looked at her without rivalry. Only fear remained. Later that afternoon, Theodora, Leopold, Mrs. Vale and Madame Lenoir visited Mr. Sorrel, a lace merchant near St. Martin's Lane. Sir Reginald refused to attend. Lady Blanche was not invited. Augusta chose to come and sat beside Mrs. Vale with the completed veil box at her feet. Mr. Sorrel examined the numbered bobbin through a small lens, then consulted 2 ledgers. "Number 473 came from a workshop near Winslow," he said. "Mrs. Pell supervised the makers." "Did the workshop receive this pattern?" Theodora asked. Mr. Sorrel turned several pages. 3 instructions were entered last autumn. 1 border for Lady Verena Datchford, 1 for Miss A. Fairbourne, 1 trial pattern delivered to a Fairbourne address in London. Augusta leaned forward. "Not a 3rd bridal order?" "No, miss. The letter T in the account means trial." Theodora felt a false accusation fall away. Hector had left room for society to read T as Theodora only if he needed another suspect. "Who placed the orders?" Leopold asked. "A gentleman acting through an agent's account. Name, none recorded." Mr. Sorrel hesitated, but he required the workshop to retain the original pricking until the correct lady was confirmed. "The correct lady," Augusta repeated. Her voice was hollow. Mr. Sorrel looked uncomfortable. Those were the words. He brought out a narrow receipt book. The trial pattern was collected by a woman from the Fairbourne household. She signed only with the letter B. Augusta closed her eyes briefly. Theodora did not look at her. "Can Mrs. Pell identify the person who gave the instructions?" she asked. "Possibly. She dealt with him twice." "And does she still possess the pricking?" "I cannot say. Paper is not always kept when a workshop struggles through winter." Leopold looked at Theodora, waiting rather than deciding. "Do you want to go to Winslow?" he asked. "Yes, but not yet." "Why?" "Because Hector expects us to follow the workshop trail as soon as we understand it." She looked at the white box by Augusta's feet. "He wants the completed veil seen first." A messenger entered the shop and handed Mr. Sorrel a note addressed to Miss Augusta Fairbourne. Augusta broke the seal. Her face lost what little color remained. "Read it," Theodora said. Augusta's hand trembled. "The charitable lace exhibition opens in 2 days. Wear the veil beneath the Aldermere display. Once London sees you, His Grace won't be able to deny what everyone already believes." Leopold's expression hardened. "There is no Aldermere display." Mr. Sorrel looked toward the ledger. "There will be. A placard order was placed last week." Theodora took the note from Augusta. At the bottom, beneath the unsigned instruction, was a printer's date. The placard had been ordered before Leopold ever announced his courtship. "What does it say?" she asked. Mr. Sorrel checked the entry and went still. "Aldermere bridal leaf." Augusta stared at the completed veil at her feet. Then he never meant to wait for the Duke to choose. No, Theodora said. He meant to make the choice in front of witnesses. Augusta did not open the white box again until the following morning. Theodora found her in the dressing room, standing before the long mirror, the completed veil draped over her hair and shoulders. Morning light softened the lace and made the copied pattern appear almost innocent. Lady Blanche stood behind her, adjusting the fall near one temple. "It suits you," she said. "Once London sees it, no one will question what should have been obvious from the beginning." Augusta watched her own reflection. What should have been obvious? Blanche's hands paused. "That you are the natural choice." "Natural," Augusta repeated. "Or available?" Blanche's mouth tightened. Theodora remained near the door with Mrs. Vale behind her. She had not come to accuse. She had come because Augusta had sent for her before breakfast, a fact Lady Blanche clearly resented. The completed veil reached halfway down Augusta's back. Along the edge, every third leaf bent inward with the same inherited mistake. "Read the note again," Theodora said. Augusta looked at her through the mirror. "I know what it says. Read it aloud." "Why?" "Because Hector's words have done their best work when someone else repeats them silently." Lady Blanche turned. "You will not conduct an interrogation in my daughter's dressing room." "Then Augusta may refuse." Theodora looked at her sister. "Do you?" Augusta lowered her eyes to the folded paper on the dressing table. After a long hesitation, she picked it up. "Wear the veil beneath the Aldermere display. Once London sees you, His Grace won't be able to deny what everyone already believes." Her voice thinned on the final words. Theodora stepped closer, but did not touch the lace. "What does it promise?" "That he will have to clarify." "No. It promises that enough witnesses will make his denial expensive." Augusta's fingers tightened around the paper. "You say that because you want him to choose you. I want him to choose nothing under threat." "That sounds noble now that he is courting you." "He is courting me because I demanded terms. That does not make me his bride." "Not yet." The words came quickly, sharpened by fear. "You think patience proves virtue because you can afford it. I cannot. Every woman in London will see that he brought you forward and left me looking foolish. Hector arranged that before the Duke met either of us. And if I remove the veil," Augusta turned to face her. "What then? Everyone will know I was never chosen." "You were never chosen," Augusta flinched. Theodora softened her voice. "Neither was I. That is the truth we both have to survive. You speak as though we are equal in this. We are equal in being used. We are not equal in what we know now." Lady Blanche stepped between them. "Enough. Augusta does not need philosophy. She needs courage." "To do what?" Theodora asked. "Wear evidence of a lie until a man is forced to reward it." Blanche's face hardened. "A lie does not remain a lie if society accepts it. It only becomes a more powerful lie." Augusta looked back at the mirror. The completed veil made her appear bridal, admired, already claimed. Without it, she was merely a young woman standing before a choice she did not trust herself to make. "Hector said visibility creates certainty," she whispered. "No," Theodora said. "Visibility creates witnesses. Certainty is what he intends to sell them afterward." Augusta removed one pin from the crown of the veil. Lady Blanche caught her wrist. "Do not be foolish." The movement was small, but Theodora saw what it revealed. Blanche was not protecting Augusta from humiliation. She was protecting the plan from Augusta's doubt. "Let her decide," Theodora said. "She has never been allowed to decide," Blanche replied. "That is why she does not understand what is at stake." Augusta looked at her mother's hand around her wrist, then slowly replaced the pin. "I will wear it," she said. Her voice shook, "not because I trust Hector, because I will not let everyone think I surrendered before they even saw me." Theodora felt disappointment, but not surprise. Fear rarely surrendered after one conversation. "Then wear it knowing what it is," she said. "A trap is not transformed because you enter with your eyes open." A footman announced Hector Bellingham before Lady Blanche could answer. He waited in the drawing room with Sir Reginald and Leopold. Hector rose as the women entered. His grey coat was immaculate. His expression suggested mild concern, as though he had been summoned to untangle a problem created by less capable people. Theodora noticed the bone bobbin between his fingers. He rolled it once, then slipped it into his pocket when he saw her watching. "Miss Augusta," he said, "the veil is striking." Leopold stood near the fireplace. His attention went first to Augusta's face, then to the lace, then to Hector. "Where did it come from?" Augusta answered before her mother could. "It was sent to me with instructions to wear it at the exhibition." Hector lifted his brows. "Instructions?" "You know the note," Theodora said. "Do I? It uses your favorite method. No promise, only pressure made to resemble expectation." Hector smiled faintly. "You have become fond of dramatic phrasing, and you have become fond of anonymous orders." Sir Reginald made an impatient sound. "We are here to decide how the family proceeds, not trade insults." Leopold looked at Hector. "Then explain the placard." The question struck cleanly. Hector's hand paused near his coat. "What placard?" "Aldermere bridal leaf," Theodora said. "Ordered last week." Before the Duke announced any courtship, Hector recovered quickly. "A charitable display requires a name that attracts attention." "Using a ducal title without consent?" Leopold asked. "The pattern was already connected to your household. By false orders you helped circulate. You have no proof of that." "Not yet," Theodora said. Hector's gaze shifted to her. "And until you do, you are merely a woman who benefits from confusion while condemning everyone else for creating it." Augusta looked at him. "Did you know the initials could refer to either of us?" Hector turned toward her with practiced patience. The initials protected the family until His Grace was prepared to make his preference clear. "That is not what I asked." Something in Augusta's voice had changed. Not courage yet. "A fracture. Did you know?" Hector's smile thinned. "I knew flexibility was necessary." The same word Lady Blanche had used. Augusta heard it. So did Theodora. "You told me the veil was meant for me," Augusta said. "I told you it could become yours." The distinction entered the room like cold air. Leopold stepped forward. "You arranged a public event to force my choice." Hector did not deny it. "I arranged an opportunity to end a scandal that has already damaged several households. By creating another scandal, by directing uncertainty toward a useful conclusion." There it was again, the phrase from behind the library door. Theodora saw Sir Reginald look away. "Useful to whom?" she asked. Hector faced her. "To everyone." Lady Verena receives a correction. The Fairbournes gain security. His Grace regains control of his name. And you? I establish that I can resolve matters lesser men mishandle. Leopold's expression cooled. You intend to profit from noble families by creating crises only you can solve. Hector's composure slipped for the first time. Do not pretend your class objects to management. It objects only when the manager lacks a title. You mistake access for authority, Leopold said, and usefulness for trust. The words landed harder because Theodora had spoken of usefulness days earlier. Hector looked toward Augusta. Wear the veil tomorrow. Stand beneath the placard. Once society sees a Fairbourne bride, Lady Verena's claim collapses. Which Fairbourne bride? Augusta asked. He did not answer quickly enough. Theodora saw the last of Augusta's certainty break, though she still held herself upright. You never cared which of us he chose, she said. I cared that he chose one. Leopold's voice became quiet. I will choose no woman under coercion. Hector spread his hands. Then London will assume indecision, guilt, or cowardice, perhaps all three. London may assume what it pleases. Easy to say when a duke's reputation can survive delay. A woman's cannot. Hector looked deliberately at Theodora. Miss Theodora will be called calculating. Miss Augusta will be called discarded. Lady Verena will be called deceived. You could end all of that with one public choice. Leopold looked at Augusta. Do you wish to remove the veil? She stared at him, startled by the question. Lady Blanche answered at once. She does not. Leopold did not look away from Augusta. I asked her. Theodora felt the importance of the correction. He had almost commanded before. This time he waited. Augusta's hands rose toward the pins, then stopped. Hector spoke softly. If you remove it now, everyone will know you surrendered before the Duke chose. Augusta lowered her hands. Theodora turned toward him. That is what you need her to fear. Fear is often another name for understanding consequence. No, fear is what you use when truth would not persuade. Augusta lifted her chin. I will wear it tomorrow. Her voice remained unsteady, but the decision was hers, however wounded. Then I will attend too, Theodora said. Hector looked pleased. Of course you will, not beneath your placard, beside the original veil. Leopold stepped to Theodora's side, not in front of her, and I will stand beside Miss Theodora. Augusta's face paled. You mean to humiliate me? No, Leopold said. I mean to refuse a false engagement in public because it was created in public. Hector's smile returned. Then tomorrow will clarify more than you intend. As he turned to leave, a folded card slipped from the inner pocket of his coat and fell near the carpet's edge. Augusta saw it first. She bent and picked it up before Hector could retrieve it. The card bore the copied falcon with the missing feather. Beneath it, in a printer's neat hand, was the date and the title of the exhibition placard. Augusta read the date twice. This was printed before the Duke came to Fairbourne Grange. Hector held out his hand. Give it to me. Augusta looked at the card, then at the veil falling around her shoulders. Slowly, she placed the card in Theodora's hand instead. Theodora kept the placard card in her reticule until the next morning, when the charitable lace exhibition opened in a grand assembly room near Hanover Square. Tall sash windows admitted a cold, white light. Chandeliers hung above rows of long tables covered in linen, where lace collars, cuffs, fichus, and bridal borders had been arranged beneath the patronage of a dowager duchess known for supporting distressed needleworkers. Nothing about the room should have suggested danger. Yet the moment Theodora entered with her mother's unfinished veil stretched across its narrow frame, she saw the placard. Aldermere Bridal Leaf. It stood above the central display in black lettering, bordered by a printed falcon with one feather missing from the left wing. Leopold saw it at the same moment. His expression did not change, but the hand at his side closed once. I gave no permission for my name to be used, he said quietly. That is why they used it where everyone could see it before you arrived, Theodora replied. Mrs. Vale followed several paces behind. Theodora had asked Leopold not to remove the placard immediately. If it vanished before witnesses saw it, Hector could later claim that no false display had existed. Leopold had agreed. though every line of his posture showed how little he liked leaving the lie in place. Augusta entered from the opposite end of the room with Lady Blanche and Sir Reginald. The completed veil fell over her pale hair and down the back of her blue gown. It transformed her at once. Guests turned, several women smiled, a few whispered behind gloved hands. Lady Blanche lifted her chin, accepting admiration as if it confirmed a private contract. Augusta did not smile. Her eyes found Theodora first, then moved to Leopold. Before anyone could approach them, Lady Verena Datchford entered beneath the arm of an older countess. Her ivory fichu carried the same repeating leaf border. Every third leaf bent inward with the same copied mistake. The room had been arranged to produce one conclusion. 3 women, 1 pattern, 1 duke. The Dowager Duchess, overseeing the exhibition, approached the central platform with a prepared card in her hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we are honored to present a bridal design associated with the distinguished House of Aldermere." Leopold stepped forward. "Your Grace." The Dowager Duchess stopped and looked toward him. He bowed with exact courtesy. "Before you continue, may I ask who supplied that wording?" She glanced at the card. "An agent acting for your household." "No agent of mine did so." The room changed. Conversation softened. Heads turned. The Dowager Duchess's expression sharpened with displeasure, not at him, but at whoever had placed her in error. "Then I have been misled." "So have several women," Theodora said. The Dowager Duchess looked at her. "Miss Fairbourne?" "Yes, Your Grace." She carried the work frame toward the central table. Lady Blanche moved quickly. "Theodora, this is hardly the moment for a domestic dispute. It ceased to be domestic when my mother's pattern was displayed beneath another family's name." Augusta stood beneath the placard, the completed veil framing her face. Theodora saw humiliation rising in her before anyone had spoken directly to her. Society had admired the image. Now it prepared to inspect the woman inside it. Lady Verena touched the emerald pin at her throat. Perhaps the simplest explanation is that the Duke admired one design, and several ladies assumed too much. Leopold looked at her. "I admired no bridal design and commissioned none. That is not what I was told." "By Hector Bellingham?" Theodora asked. Verena's gaze shifted toward her. "By a gentleman who understood his Grace's private intentions. A gentleman who also understood how to leave every name uncertain." Near the edge of the gathering, a discreet man known to supply paragraphs to 2 society papers unfolded a proof sheet. He did not call out. He merely allowed the woman beside him to read the heading. Within seconds, the paper began to move from hand to hand. Augusta saw it reach a Viscountess near the front. "What is that?" she asked. The Viscountess hesitated, then passed it to her. Augusta read aloud before Lady Blanche could stop her. "The Duke of Aldermere to wed Miss A. Fairbourne by special license." The silence that followed was more dangerous than laughter. Augusta looked toward Leopold. "Did you authorize this?" "No." "Then why does it name a Fairbourne?" "Because the first name was deliberately omitted," Theodora said. She opened her reticule and placed Hector's placard card beside the printed notice. "This display was ordered before the Duke came to Fairbourne Grange. The notice was prepared before he met me. Someone intended the initials to fit whichever sister could be made most useful." Lady Blanche's face hardened. "You are making Augusta appear foolish." "No," Theodora said. "The person who sent her that veil did." Augusta gripped the edge of the completed lace. "You think I should remove it now and let everyone believe I begged for a place that was never mine? I think the room should know the veil was sent to force a choice, not confirm one. Lady Verena stepped closer. And what of your own veil? You brought it here, knowing. His Grace was courting you. I brought the original, because it was copied without permission. Theodora laid her mother's unfinished work across the central table. The Dowager Duchess leaned closer. So did several women who understood lace well enough to see more than beauty. Theodora pointed to the third leaf in the pattern. Here, the inner curve bends too sharply. My mother made the error years ago. I corrected one section last week. The same flaw appears in Miss Augusta's completed veil and in Lady Verena's fichu. Verena's color changed. Augusta lowered her eyes to the border near her shoulder. Theodora continued. 3 pieces carry one flawed pricking. None was authorized by the Duke. The pattern was taken from my workbox after Lady Blanche sent it to London last autumn. Every gaze moved toward Blanche. She straightened. I sent it for assessment, and a trial copy was delivered to your London address. That proves nothing. It proves access. Hector appeared at the edge of the crowd as though summoned by accusation. He wore the same composed expression he had carried into every room until now. This exhibition was intended to support working women, he said. It is unfortunate that Miss Fairbourne has turned it into a quarrel over ownership. Theodora faced him. Then explain the date on the placard order. Hector looked at the card in her hand. Only the briefest pause betrayed him. A printer's date can be mistaken. The same printer prepared the engagement notice. At whose request? That is what we intend to discover. He smiled faintly. Until then, you have only coincidences and wounded pride. Theodora felt the room waiting to see whether she would retreat. Instead, she lifted the unfinished veil from the frame and laid it beside Augusta's completed one. This is not wounded pride. This is a chain of preparation, a copied pattern, a false crest, a bride identified only by an initial, a display named for a duke who authorized nothing. Hector turned toward Leopold. Your Grace, you could end this before it becomes uglier. Choose one lady publicly. There it was, the purpose beneath every order. Leopold stepped beside Theodora, not in front of her. I have made no promise to Lady Verena. Verena's mouth tightened. I have made no promise to Miss Augusta Fairbourne. Augusta went pale beneath the veil. I am courting Miss Theodora Fairbourne. A murmur moved through the assembly room. Leopold did not raise his voice. He did not need to. She is not my fiancée. She has not agreed to become my bride. Her answer belongs to her. The society writer's pencil moved quickly. Hector's expression hardened. Augusta looked at Theodora with something between betrayal and disbelief. Then you have won, she said. Theodora's chest tightened. No, if you think one of us must lose for the other to be chosen, Hector has won. For a moment Augusta said nothing. Then she removed one pin from the veil. Lady Blanche caught her arm. Augusta looked at her mother's hand and slowly replaced the pin. She was not ready. Theodora understood that readiness could not be dragged into existence. The exhibition resumed in fragments, but no one looked at the placard as they had before. The Dowager Duchess ordered it removed and preserved. Hector left without offering another explanation. Lady Verena withdrew to the far side of the room, where even her closest acquaintances gave her space. In the carriage afterward, Theodora sat opposite Leopold, with the unfinished veil folded across her lap. Mrs. Vale occupied the forward seat and kept her eyes upon the window. You did not silence me, Theodora said. You asked me not to. You also did not deny the courtship, because it is true, and the rest, he looked at her, the rest remains yours to decide. The carriage turned into Grosvenor Square. Theodora placed the folded veil into his hands. Hold this. His fingers closed carefully around the lace. Not me, she added. I understand. The restraint in his answer nearly softened her. Then she noticed the folded document protruding from the inner pocket of his coat. A seal from the faculty office marked the corner. What is that? Leopold went still. Theodora looked from the seal to his face. You began an inquiry for a special license. He did not lie. Yes. The warmth vanished from the carriage. Before today? This morning. Before I agreed to marry you, I intended it as protection. Theodora looked at the veil in his hands and understood that while he had defended her right to answer before, an entire room, he had already begun building a marriage around the answer he hoped she would give. Theodora did not speak again until the carriage stopped before Wycliffe House. Leopold still held the unfinished veil in both hands, as carefully as if the lace could accuse him by tearing. Mrs. Vale remained silent on the forward seat. Outside, a footman opened the door and waited. You began the inquiry this morning, Theodora said. Yes. Before the exhibition. Yes, before I agreed to marry you. Leopold's gaze did not leave hers. Yes, the honesty did not soften the blow, it made it cleaner. And yet you stood before that room and told them my answer belonged to me. It does. Then why were you already preparing what would follow? The footman lowered his eyes. Leopold dismissed him with a slight motion. The carriage door closed again. Because the false notice named a special license, he said. If the rumor spread before we could disprove it, your reputation would be tied to mine, whether you consented or not. I wanted the means to protect you from the consequences. By making the rumor true, by giving you an option you concealed. His jaw tightened. There was no advantage in alarming you before I knew whether it would be necessary. Necessary to whom? To both of us. You cannot decide necessity for both of us. Theodora reached for the veil. Leopold returned it at once. The obedience hurt more than resistance might have done. She folded the lace across her lap. What else have you prepared? She asked. A pause. Too long. A draft settlement. Already. My solicitor began it yesterday, and the vendors. His expression changed by a fraction. Several agreed not to speak publicly until the claims were examined. Agreed in exchange for what? Their losses were covered. You paid them. I paid legitimate expenses and requested discretion. You requested silence from the very people who may know who used your name. Public statements made without proof could deepen the scandal or expose it. They could also ruin tradeswomen whose clients would abandon them for involvement. Did they choose silence freely, or did a duke's solicitor place a paper before them and explain what prudence required? Leopold's voice cooled. No one was threatened. You do not need to threaten when your name can close doors. The carriage seemed smaller with every answer. He looked toward Wycliffe House. Come inside. Read the papers. You may reject every term. That is not the point. Then tell me the point plainly. You have been building a marriage around me while asking me to believe I was free to refuse. The word struck him. She saw it, though he did not move. Those papers do not bind you, he said. They bind the room around me. Silence followed. Theodora continued before anger could become less precise. A special license inquiry. A settlement. Vendors instructed not to speak. By the time you ask, everyone else will already be prepared for one answer. My refusal will become a disruption you must endure instead of a choice you intended to respect. I intended to prevent you from being ruined. You were deciding which ruin I could survive. Leopold's expression closed. but not from indifference. Control was returning because hurt had reached him. You believe preparation is coercion. Preparation becomes coercion when only one person knows it exists. And what would you have had me do? Let society call you calculating. Let Lady Verena claim betrayal. Let Augusta appear discarded while Bellingham feeds every version to the papers. Tell me. There was no time. There was time to instruct a solicitor. That stopped him. Theodora opened the carriage door herself. Mrs. Vale descended first. Leopold followed them into Wycliffe House without touching Theodora's arm. In the library, 3 sets of papers waited upon the long table. The first bore the seal of the faculty office. The second contained the proposed settlement. The third listed Madame Lenoir, Mr. Harcourt, Mr. Sorrel, and 2 unnamed tradeswomen beside amounts paid and private undertakings not to publish or discuss the commissions. Theodora read the first page of each. She did not need the rest to understand the shape of what he had done. You prohibited this in our terms, she said. I began an inquiry. I did not obtain a license. You promised no inquiry. Leopold looked at the paper. Yes, why me? He lifted his gaze. What? Why do you want to marry me? You know why. I know why I am useful. That is not the same. Then tell me the difference. He came around the table but stopped several feet away. You see what others miss. You do not flatter me. You understand how a lie survives because you have lived among smaller versions of it. You protected Augusta while she stood beneath a veil designed to injure you. You ask what authority costs the person who must obey it. Theodora's throat tightened. Recognition had always been the thing she wanted most. That did not make it enough. And do you want me? She asked. Or the woman who can solve this? Leopold did not answer quickly enough. The silence opened between them. He looked at the unfinished veil in her hands, then back at her. The two are not separate. They are to me. Theodora. It was the first time he had spoken her given name. The intimacy of it nearly undid her resolve. For someone who has spent her life being useful, she said, the difference is everything. I am not your family. No, you are more powerful than they are. The truth landed harder than accusation. Leopold turned toward the fireplace. For several seconds, he said nothing. When he faced her again, the coldness had fallen away enough to reveal uncertainty. I was trying to keep you safe. Safety chosen for me is still a cage. And if I ask you now, ask what? Whether you would marry me if the scandal leaves no other protection. Theodora looked at him with a sorrow she had not expected to feel. Then you are still asking whether I will become the fastest answer. He inhaled slowly. You are making this decision while angry. I am making it while clear. She placed the unfinished veil upon the table beside the settlement. White thread rested against black ink. One remained incomplete because no one had decided what it must become. The other had been prepared as though her answer were already known. I will not marry by special license, she said. I will not accept a settlement drafted before I was asked. I will not let frightened tradeswomen's silence become the foundation of my reputation. The payments were meant to protect them. Then release them from every undertaking and let them keep the money. If they speak, it must be because they choose to. That may worsen the scandal. Yes, you would risk your name. It is already being used without me. Leopold's gaze held hers. What else? End the faculty office inquiry. Destroy every preparation made without my knowledge. Do not ask me to marry you again until marriage is no longer the quickest way to save either of us. And if London decides I rejected you, then I will answer as myself. Truth does not move as quickly as scandal. No, it lasts longer. Mrs. Vale shifted near the open door, but did not interrupt. Theodora lifted the veil from the table. Our courtship ends here. The words hurt after she spoke them. She had expected freedom to feel wider. Instead, it felt like stepping into cold air without a railing. Leopold's face became unreadable. If you leave this house, Bellingham will use it. He will use anything. You will lose the protection of my name. Then it was never protection. It was a condition. He looked at her as though some final argument remained, then let it go. I will end the inquiry. Because I demanded it? Because I was wrong? The answer came quietly. It did not repair what had broken. It did, however, prevent the break from becoming another lie. Theodora turned toward the door. And the vendors, they will be released today. In writing, yes. She stopped once before leaving. Do not follow me. Leopold's voice was low. I will not. At the Fairbourne house, Lady Blanche had already received the first society paragraph. It claimed the Duke had withdrawn his courtship after Miss Theodora Fairbourne made a private confession. Sir Reginald refused to look at her over dinner. Augusta looked often and said nothing. Theodora carried her workbox upstairs, closed the door, and set the unfinished veil upon the table. She tried to arrange the numbered bobbins. Her fingers would not obey. For years, lace had been the one place where patience produced order. That evening, even the familiar crossing of thread felt like another demand to repair what someone else had damaged. She closed the workbox without touching the pattern. A note slid beneath her door minutes later. No signature appeared, only one line. By morning, London will know why the Duke rejected you. Theodora folded the paper once. Across Grosvenor Square, Leopold stood alone in his library. He tore the faculty office letter in half, then signed releases for every vendor. His secretary entered before the ink had dried. Your Grace, Mr. Bellingham has sent the rejection story to 3 society papers. Leopold looked at the ruined inquiry on his desk. He had tried to outrun scandal with control. Instead, he had given Hector the exact weapon he needed. Issue no denial in Miss Fairbourne's name, he said, but the story will spread. Then let it spread without stealing her voice again. He looked toward the empty chair where Theodora had sat. Find out who sent the lace to Buckinghamshire, and this time, no one is to be silenced. The parcel from Buckinghamshire arrived before breakfast, wrapped in brown paper and tied with coarse thread. Theodora found it beside her plate in the small morning room, where the curtains had been opened to a grey London sky, and the society papers lay folded near Sir Reginald's untouched chair. Mrs. Vale sat opposite her, with one of the papers lowered across her lap. The printed paragraph had already done what Hector intended. Miss Theodora Fairbourne, it claimed, had made a private confession so serious that the Duke of Aldermere had withdrawn his courtship at once. No confession was named. That omission made the lie more useful. Readers could invent whatever disgrace suited them. Theodora cut the parcel string with a breakfast knife. Inside lay a single bone lace bobbin, worn smooth near the neck, and marked at the base with the number 473. Beneath it rested a folded note. Miss Fairbourne, I was told to keep silent, but I cannot let another woman's name be used as mine was. If you wish to know who ordered the 3 instructions, come to Winslow. Ask for Mrs. Pell. Bring no gentleman unless he comes by your invitation. Theodora read the final sentence twice. Mrs. Vale set down the newspaper. You intend to go? Yes. Will you tell the Duke? I will leave word that I am pursuing the workshop trail. That is not the same as inviting him. No. Theodora folded the note. I need to know whether I can move without becoming an extension of his authority. She did not say that part of her wanted Leopold to come. Wanting him, after ending the courtship, felt like a weakness she had not earned the right to indulge. She trusted him to recognize danger. She trusted him to stand before a hostile room and refuse a lie. She did not yet trust what he would build around her once fear entered the matter. "Mrs. Hensley is in town," Mrs. Vale said. "Your aunt can accompany us. Mary should come as well. Today, before Lady Blanche learns of the parcel, before Hector does." 3 hours later, Theodora sat inside a hired post chaise with Mrs. Vale, her widowed aunt Mrs. Hensley, and Mary. The bobbin lay secured in the travelling case beneath Theodora's feet. She had left a note for Sir Reginald stating where she had gone. For Leopold, she left only that she was following the lace orders and would return when she had facts. No address, no request. The choice felt necessary and unkind in equal measure. The road north of London was rutted from recent rain. Hedgerows passed in long dark lines while villages appeared and vanished beyond the glass. Mrs. Hensley asked no questions until they were several miles from the city. "You are angry with the Duke?" "Yes, and still hoping he has become the man you thought he was." Theodora looked out the window. "No, I am hoping he becomes a man I can judge by what he does after I have refused him." Mrs. Hensley nodded as though that answer confirmed something. "Then today is not about him?" "No, it was about a pattern stolen from one woman's hands, copied by others under pressure, and used to decide which woman could be made most believable." Winslow was smaller than Theodora expected. Mrs. Pell's workshop occupied 2 rooms behind a modest house at the edge of town. 6 women sat at lace pillows beneath the front windows. Their bobbins clicked in a steady rhythm, bone and wood crossing beneath practiced hands. The sound stopped when Theodora entered. Mrs. Pell rose from the far table. She was a narrow woman in her late 50s with grey threaded through her brown hair and eyes that measured visitors before offering trust. "You came without him," she said. "The Duke was not invited." Mrs. Pell looked toward Mrs. Vale and Mrs. Hensley. "Good." She led them into a smaller back room and left the door unlatched. On the work table lay 3 delivery tokens, a folded receipt, and a roll of pricked parchment tied with faded ribbon. "Mr. Bellingham placed the instructions," she said. "All 3?" Theodora asked. "Yes." "Under his own name?" "Never. He spoke as an agent, but he came twice himself." Mrs. Pell picked up the numbered bobbin from Theodora's case. "He carried this because he wanted me to believe he understood the trade. He did not. He only understood how fear travels through poor rooms." Theodora glanced toward the women beyond the doorway. What did he threaten? First, he promised introductions to London merchants. Then he said no respectable shop would accept our work if we questioned the commissions. Mrs. Pell untied the parchment. "This is the original pricking." The repeating leaf border ran across the stiff paper. Every third leaf bent inward too sharply. Tiny wax stains marked one corner. He supplied the pattern from a workbox sent out of Sussex. Mrs. Pell continued. One border was for Lady Verena Datchford. One was for Miss A. Fairbourne. The third was a trial copy delivered to the Fairbourne address in London. Did he explain why the name remained uncertain? He said the correct lady would be identified later, and the chapel order. Mrs. Pell unfolded a receipt, a kneeling cushion. White silk, silver falcon, Wycliffe name. It was delivered to Lady Blanche Fairbourne's London house. Mrs. Vale drew a quiet breath. The crest was false, copied from a painted image. One feather missing. Theodora looked at the receipt. Did Lady Blanche place the order? A woman from her household collected it. I did not see her face. Why keep these records? Because Mr. Bellingham told me to burn them. Mrs. Pell's mouth tightened. Men who ask working women to destroy paper usually expect their own words to remain respectable. Theodora looked at the women in the front room, at the worn cushions and repaired chairs. Will you speak publicly? Mrs. Pell's eyes went toward the doorway. If my women are not punished for it, I cannot promise ducal patronage. I did not ask for ducal patronage. The answer struck cleanly. What do you want? Commissions placed through more than one reputable merchant. Fair accounts. No household able to starve us because we refused a lie. Theodora understood at once. Mrs. Pell did not want rescue that created a new dependence. Then that is what we seek. A carriage stopped outside. The clicking in the front room ceased again. Theodora's first thought was Hector. Her second was Leopold. Mrs. Hensley moved toward the window. A gentleman followed us from London for nearly 5 miles, she said. I sent word from the last posting house. Theodora turned. To whom? To a man capable of discovering whether we were being followed by accident. Leopold entered the back room only after Mrs. Hensley gave permission. His dark coat carried road dust. He had left his carriage at the inn and come the final distance on horseback. He stopped just inside the door. The man following you was one of Bellingham's clerks, he said. He turned back after my secretary approached him. His gaze found Theodora's. May I remain? The question held more weight than the distance he had traveled. You may listen, she said. You may not take the documents. Agreed. You may not promise patronage in exchange for testimony. His first instinct appeared in the stillness of his shoulders. Then it passed. Agreed. Mrs. Pell repeated the account. Leopold asked precise questions, but did not interrupt. When she described the threat to merchant introductions, anger entered his face, controlled but unmistakable. I can place the workshop under Aldermere protection, he said. Theodora looked at him. No. He met her eyes. They need secure work. They need work that does not disappear when one duke changes his mind. Without income, freedom becomes a word. Then place commissions through several merchants. Pay fair accounts. Do not make their survival depend upon loyalty to your house. Mrs. Pell watched both of them. Leopold looked toward the women in the front room, then back at Theodora. You are right. He turned to Mrs. Pell. No testimony will be required. My household will place orders through established merchants on the same terms offered to others. I will ask 2 other families to do the same. But your workshop will owe none of us silence or gratitude. Mrs. Pell studied him for a long moment. That will do. Leopold drew 3 folded papers from his coat and placed them on the table. The faculty office inquiry has ended. Every tradeswoman who signed a private undertaking has been released in writing. The payments remain theirs. No statement is owed. Theodora touched none of the papers. You did this before you knew whether I would forgive you. I did it because you were right. That is not the same as understanding. No, his voice lowered, but it is where understanding begins. She wanted to believe him. The wanting frightened her more than doubt. There will be another condition when we confront Hector. Name it. You stand where I ask. You speak when I ask. You do not turn the truth into a ducal rescue. Leopold did not hesitate. Agreed. Mrs. Pell lifted another receipt from beneath the original pricking. Then you should know, Lady Blanche sent word yesterday. She intends to offer the unfinished veil at the closing subscription sale. Theodora went still. On what grounds? The notice calls it abandoned bridal work connected to a rejected courtship. Leopold's expression hardened. The old impulse rose in him. She saw it before he spoke. He could have ordered the veil seized. He could have sent men ahead. Instead, he looked at her. "What do you want to do?" Theodora rolled the original pricking carefully and placed it inside Mrs. Hensley's travelling case. "We return to London," she said, "and this time no one else decides what the veil means." Theodora returned to London after dusk, with the original lace pricking locked inside Mrs. Hensley's travelling case and Mrs. Pell's receipts wrapped beneath Mary's seat. Leopold rode behind them rather than insisting they use his carriage. It was a small decision, almost invisible, but Theodora noticed it. He no longer assumed the road belonged to him simply because he could command it. By the time they reached the Fairbourne house, Lady Blanche had already sent printed notices to several subscribers announcing that the unfinished veil would be offered at the closing charitable sale as abandoned bridal work connected to a rejected courtship. The wording did not accuse Theodora directly. It did something more dangerous. It allowed everyone else to accuse her for themselves. Augusta waited in the drawing room beside Sir Reginald. The completed veil was not on her head, but the white box remained near her chair. Lady Blanche sat upright on the settee with Hector Bellingham's latest letter unopened beside her hand. "The sale will not proceed," Theodora said. Blanche did not rise. "You cannot forbid a charitable committee from accepting a family object. It is not a family object. You have repeated that claim often enough, and I now have the memorandum my mother wrote, a witness who saw it, and the original workshop record showing the pattern was taken from my workbox." Sir Reginald frowned. Must every disagreement become a public contest? It became public when Lady Blanche advertised my property as proof of my humiliation. Augusta looked toward the printed notice on the table. The sale might end the gossip. "No," Theodora said. "It would give the gossip an object to purchase." Blanche's expression hardened. "You are determined to make yourself the injured party." "I am determined not to let you sell evidence because it embarrasses you." Augusta rose. "And what happens to me if you expose everything?" The question came without accusation at first. That made it harder to answer carelessly. "You may lose this season," Theodora said. "You may lose invitations. People may say you wanted a marriage that never existed. That is ruin. No, it is consequence." Augusta's face tightened. "Easy for you to say. He still follows you to Buckinghamshire. He followed because someone followed us first. He stands beside you. He listens when you speak. He looks at you as though every refusal proves you are more worthy." Theodora felt the truth of that and did not use it as a weapon. "None of that makes me responsible for preserving a lie. If I tell the truth, Mother will blame me. Father will say, I destroyed the family. Hector will deny everything. Then let him deny it after you have spoken." Augusta looked at Blanche. "Did you know the initials could be used for either of us?" Blanche answered before her daughter finished. "Mr. Bellingham said uncertainty would protect the family." "Protect which daughter?" Augusta asked. "Whichever one his grace chose. So not me." Blanche's patience broke. "Do not be childish. You were the obvious choice until Theodora inserted herself." The old insult entered the room, but Augusta did not accept it as comfort. "He told me the announcement would force the Duke to choose," she said. "He said if His Grace preferred Theodora, society could be made to believe she had arranged the notice herself." Sir Reginald looked up sharply. Theodora went still. "You knew that?" Augusta's eyes filled. "Not at first. Later." How much later? Before the exhibition. The answer hurt, not because Theodora had expected innocence, but because part of her had hoped Augusta's fear had been used without her knowledge, and you still wore the veil. I thought if enough people saw me first, he would not be able to choose you without looking cruel. Lady Blanche stood. Augusta, stop. No. The word trembled, but it remained hers. Augusta reached into the pocket of her gown and withdrew a narrow ribbon seal stamped in blue wax. The false falcon lacked one feather. This came with the chapel cushion delivery, she said. Mother told me to burn it. Blanche's face lost color. You ungrateful girl. Augusta flinched, then placed the ribbon in Theodora's hand. I did not burn it. Theodora looked at the seal, then at her sister. Why give it to me now? Because I do not want you ruined, so I can pretend I was chosen. The admission did not erase what Augusta had done. It did, however, mark the first action she had taken against the lie rather than within it. I will not promise that speaking will protect your season, Theodora said. I will promise that no one will marry you off as punishment. Sir Reginald stiffened. That is not your decision. Leopold had entered the room quietly with Mrs. Vale and his secretary. He remained near the open door until Theodora looked toward him. It will not be yours alone, she said to her father. Not after what silence has already cost. Leopold came no farther. The solicitor's notice has been delivered to the charitable committee, he said. The veil cannot be sold while ownership is disputed. Blanche turned toward him. You have interfered in a family matter. No. Miss Fairbourne asserted a documented claim. My solicitor carried it. The distinction mattered. Theodora felt it. He had acted through her decision, not around it. A servant announced Lady Verena Datchford. Blanche objected, but Theodora asked that she be shown in with Mrs. Vale present. Verena entered in dark blue, composed enough to appear calm and pale enough to betray the cost of maintaining it. I will withdraw my claim, she said, on one condition. Name it, Theodora replied. You state publicly that the Fairbourne family arranged the false orders. My name remains outside the fraud. Your lace was part of it. I believed it came through the Duke's household. At first, Verena's silence answered. Theodora waited. Later, Verena said, Mr. Bellingham offered a settlement if I continued the claim long enough to force his grace into payment or marriage. And you agreed. I agreed to protect myself. By sacrificing another woman. Verena's gaze sharpened. Do not pretend you have never used opportunity. You offered yourself before anyone asked you. Theodora accepted the blow because it contained truth. Yes, I believed being useful might finally make me visible. She did not look toward Leopold. I was wrong to confuse usefulness with freedom. Verena studied her, perhaps expecting defense. None came. Then you understand. I understand fear. I do not agree to hide what it made you do. Verena turned toward Leopold. You would allow her to expose me? I will not expose what is false, he said. I will not conceal what is true. Then you choose her at my expense. No, I accept that truth may cost me as well. He looked at Theodora. I have issued notice that no engagement exists and no marriage is imminent. Augusta stared at him. Blanche went rigid. Theodora understood immediately. Leopold had surrendered the quickest protection of his own reputation. You made yourself appear indecisive, Verena said, temporarily. For her, for the fact that she had not consented. Something in Theodora's chest shifted, but she did not let relief become forgiveness before it had earned its place. Leopold's secretary stepped forward with a folded memorandum. There is another matter. The printer's apprentice, Daniel Price, recorded the engagement order. He can identify the date and the instruction to leave the first name uncertain. Then bring him, Sir Reginald said. He refuses to come, the secretary replied. Why? Theodora asked. His widowed mother signed a promissory note to the master printer for his apprenticeship, premium, and their lodgings. Mr. Bellingham purchased the note this afternoon. If Daniel speaks, the master can call the debt and dismiss him. The room went quiet. Hector had moved from manipulating women's names to purchasing a young man's silence through his mother's fear. Leopold's first instinct appeared in the set of his shoulders. Command, payment, immediate control. He looked at Theodora before speaking. What do you want me to do? She held the false falcon ribbon in one hand and thought of Mrs. Pell refusing patronage purchased with obedience. Discharge the note, she said, but do not summon Daniel afterward. Leopold's gaze remained on hers. Then how do we secure his testimony? We do not secure it. Without him, the newspaper order may remain unproven. Then he must be free to remain silent. Theodora closed her fingers around the seal. If he speaks, it must be because the truth belongs to him, not because his freedom belongs to us. By 10 o'clock the next morning, Leopold's solicitor had purchased the promissory note from Hector Bellingham and marked it discharged without repayment. The document was delivered to Daniel Price's mother with a written statement that no testimony, service, or gratitude was required. Daniel was not summoned to Wycliffe House. He was not told the Duke expected him. He was simply informed that the debt no longer existed. Theodora read a copy of the statement in the Fairbourne morning room, while Mrs. Vale sat near the window and Augusta stood before the cold fireplace, twisting the ribbon seal between her fingers. He did what you asked, Augusta said. Yes, and you still do not trust him. Trust is not restored by one correct action. Augusta looked down. No, I suppose it is not. The words held more self-knowledge than apology. Before Theodora could answer, a servant announced Leopold, his solicitor, and a young man named Daniel Price. Daniel entered with his hat clasped in both hands. He could not have been more than 19. His coat had been brushed carefully, though the cuffs were frayed, and he looked toward the door twice before meeting anyone's eyes. Leopold remained behind him rather than presenting him like evidence. Mr. Price asked to speak with you, he said. Theodora turned to Daniel. You understand that the note remains discharged whether you speak or not? Yes, miss, and your mother's lodgings no longer depend upon your master printer. His Grace's solicitor explained it. Then why did you come? Daniel swallowed. Because Mr. Bellingham ordered the announcement before the Duke ever went to Sussex. He said, the first name must be left uncertain, so either Fairbourne lady could be used. He said, if anyone corrected the notice, the correction would look like guilt. Theodora felt Augusta go still beside the hearth. Did Mr. Bellingham place the order himself? She asked. He brought the wording. The printer entered the payment under an agent's account. Can you identify the entry? Yes. Daniel opened the proof book he carried beneath one arm. His fingers trembled as he turned the pages. Here, the date, the amount, and the instruction to prepare a second proof if the First Lady proved inconvenient. Augusta's face lost colour. Those were his words. Not exactly, miss, he said. If the first choice fails, the name must still serve. Theodora looked at her sister. Augusta stared at the page, as though it had removed the last excuse available to her. Is the original written order preserved? Leopold's solicitor asked. Daniel hesitated. The printer was told to destroy it after Mr. Bellingham purchased the note. Was it destroyed? Theodora asked. Most of it. Daniel reached into the binding of the proof book and withdrew a narrow torn scrap. I kept this because the instructions sounded wrong. The paper bore a few lines in a compressed hand. Leave the first name uncertain. Correction will appear as guilt. Beneath the sentence stood the initials HB. Leopold's jaw tightened, but he did not move forward. Will you speak at the closing sale? Theodora asked. Daniel looked toward Leopold, then back at her. Yes. Because the Duke released the note. No, miss. Because he released it before he knew what I would do. The answer entered the room quietly. Theodora did not look at Leopold at once. When she did, he was watching Daniel, not her, and made no attempt to claim the moment. That mattered. Sir Reginald arrived before the solicitor finished copying the proof book entry. He carried a letter from Lady Blanche and looked older than he had the day before. This cannot continue, he said. Blanche has admitted allowing Bellingham access to the London address and accepting the chapel cushion. She believed it would strengthen Augusta's position. Augusta turned on him. You knew nothing. Sir Reginald's face tightened. Not the details. Did you ask? Theodora said. His silence answered. You knew he was applying pressure, she continued. You simply preferred not to know where. I was trying to preserve the family. You were preserving your innocence. That is unfair. No, it is precise. Sir Reginald looked toward Leopold. Surely this can still be settled privately. Leopold's voice was calm. I already tried to settle it privately. Miss Fairbourne was right to refuse me. Sir Reginald stared. Theodora felt the statement strike the room more deeply because Leopold offered it without defense. There is no engagement, he continued, no imminent marriage. I have said so publicly. What remains is truth, consequence, and whatever Miss Fairbourne later chooses without pressure. Sir Reginald looked at Theodora. What do you require from me? At the closing sale, you will say that you knew Hector was arranging pressure and chose not to ask how. Publicly, yes, that will damage Augusta. Augusta spoke before Theodora could. No, his silence already did that. Sir Reginald looked at his younger daughter in surprise. Augusta's hands shook, but she did not take back the words. Later that afternoon, she asked to speak with Theodora alone except for Mrs. Vale. They met in the small morning room. Augusta entered without the completed veil and closed the door herself. Mother has given Hector access to the storage room at the assembly rooms, she said. How do you know? I heard them arguing. He said the original pricking must not survive the closing sale. Theodora's pulse sharpened. What does he intend? Augusta reached into her reticule and produced a roll of paper no wider than her wrist. A corrected copy. He had it made without the bent leaf. If the copy replaces Mrs. Pell's original, he will say you altered the pattern to invent the error. Theodora unrolled the edge. The leaves were clean and even. Why bring this to me? Augusta looked away. Because I knew he planned to use me. I did not understand he planned to make you look mad. He planned both from the beginning. I know that now. Theodora waited. Augusta's voice dropped. I do not know if I can speak in front of everyone. Then do not promise what you cannot give. Will you protect me if I fail? I will not let anyone force you into marriage as punishment. I will not lie for you. Augusta nodded once, accepting the boundary. That is more honest than Mother has ever been. By evening, the closing subscription sale had begun in the same assembly room near Hanover Square. The Dowager Duchess presided from the raised platform. The unfinished veil lay upon Theodora's work frame beneath a glass case containing Mrs. Pell's original pricking. Madame Lenoir stood near the display with her invoice. Daniel waited beside the printer's proof book. Lady Verena arrived through a side entrance, pale but composed. Sir Reginald stood near the front with the look of a man already regretting the truth he had agreed to tell. Lady Blanche came last. Hector entered at her side. Leopold took his place beside the work frame and one step behind Theodora. "Here?" he asked quietly. "Here, and if he attacks your character before the evidence is complete, you let me answer. If he tries to remove the documents, then you act." Agreed. The first guests gathered around the central display. The auctioneer lifted his hammer. Hector moved toward the glass case as if merely inspecting the pattern. A young clerk approached from the opposite side, carrying a roll wrapped in cream paper. Theodora recognized the corrected copy Augusta had shown her. Hector's hand slipped toward the latch. Leopold saw it too. "Now," he murmured. "Not yet." The clerk opened the case. Mrs. Pell's original pricking lay inside, marked by tiny wax stains and the crooked leaf. The corrected copy hovered above it. Hector looked toward Lady Blanche. She gave the smallest nod. The clerk began the exchange. Theodora stepped into the central aisle before the false pattern touched the glass. "Before anyone bids," she said, "the room should know why a corrected pattern is being placed where the original stood." "Before anyone bids," Theodora said, "the room should know why a corrected pattern is being placed where the original stood." The auctioneer's hammer remained raised. The young clerk froze with the replacement pricking in both hands. Every face in the assembly room turned toward the glass case. Hector Bellingham did not look at the clerk. He looked at Theodora. "You mistake preparation for deception," he said. The original was damaged. A cleaner copy was required for display. Mrs. Pell stepped forward from among the laceworkers. "That is not a copy of my working pricking." Her voice was not loud, yet the women nearest her fell silent. "Mine bears a wax stain at the lower corner, 3 double punctures beside the 5th. Repeat, and the bent 3rd leaf copied from Miss Fairbourne's veil." Hector smiled as though indulging an employee who had misunderstood her place. A tradeswoman's memory is hardly proof. "Then open the case," Theodora said. The clerk looked toward Hector again. Leopold remained one step behind the work frame, exactly where Theodora had placed him. He did not speak. The Dowager Duchess presiding over the sale lifted one gloved hand. "The case will be opened." Her authority settled the matter. The clerk withdrew the original parchment. Mrs. Pell placed it beside the corrected copy on the central table. The differences were immediate. One leaf bent inward too sharply. The other had been repaired into perfect symmetry. Tiny wax marks stained the older paper. Near the edge, 3 punctures formed a narrow triangle. "Those marks came from my workshop," Mrs. Pell said. "The wax fell when the pattern was first pinned. I made the punctures myself to hold a loose corner." Hector turned toward the guests. "Even if that is true, it proves only that 2 versions exist. It proves someone tried to replace the version that matches every disputed piece of lace," Theodora replied. She unfolded her mother's unfinished veil upon the work frame. Augusta's completed veil was brought from the white box and laid beside it. Lady Verena removed her fichu and placed it on the table without being asked. The 3 borders aligned, every 3rd leaf carried the same inward flaw. "One pattern," Theodora said. 3 women. One false implication repeated until society mistook repetition for truth. Hector's expression remained composed. "A copied lace design does not create a marriage claim." "No," Theodora said. "False authority does." Madame Lenoir came forward with the brass token used to authorize the orders. Leopold removed his signet ring and pressed it into softened wax prepared by his solicitor. The true Wycliffe falcon appeared reversed, with both wings complete. The brass token showed the bird as painted upon a carriage panel, not impressed by a seal. One feather was missing from the left wing. The same error appeared on the exhibition placard, the printer's card, the ribbon Augusta had preserved, and the chapel kneeling cushion carried forward by Leopold's secretary. A murmur moved through the room. Hector's gaze flicked toward Lady Blanche. Anyone could have copied a public crest, he said. Yes, Theodora replied, but not everyone knew my mother's workbox had reached London after the first frost in Sussex. Lady Blanche stiffened. Madame Lenoir opened her ledger. The veiled woman who attended the first order corrected that date. She wore gloves embroidered LB. Many women possess those initials, Blanche said. The trial pattern was delivered to your address, Theodora answered. The chapel cushion was collected under your household seal. Augusta preserved the ribbon you told her to burn. Every eye moved toward Augusta. She stood near Mrs. Hensley without the completed veil. Her hands shook, but she lifted the ribbon seal so the room could see it. Blanche's face hardened. I acted for my daughter. After the Duke denied every engagement? Theodora asked. Mr. Bellingham said the denial was necessary until the proper bride was fixed. The admission escaped before Blanche understood what she had given away. Hector turned toward her. Lady Blanche is distressed. No, Theodora said. She is finally being precise. The Dowager Duchess looked at Blanche with open displeasure. You allowed my name and this charitable sale to be used in a false display. Blanche drew herself up. I believed the arrangement would become lawful once His Grace made the obvious choice. Which choice? Augusta asked. Her voice trembled, but it carried. You told me the veil was mine, Mr. Bellingham told you the bride could be either sister. Blanche did not answer. Hector stepped away from the table. This has become a family grievance, dressed as evidence. Then perhaps the printer's record will be less personal, Theodora said. Daniel Price came forward carrying the proof book. Hector looked at him and smiled with sudden cruelty. The apprentice whose mother's debt was purchased by the Duke? Daniel's face paled. Leopold's posture changed, but he waited. Daniel tightened his grip on the book. The debt was discharged before I agreed to come. A distinction supplied by a solicitor. A distinction my mother can live under, Daniel said. The room quieted around his courage. He opened the proof book to the marked entry. Mr. Bellingham placed announcement before His Grace travelled to Sussex. He ordered the first name left uncertain. Daniel withdrew the torn scrap hidden in the binding and handed it to the Dowager Duchess. She read aloud. Leave the first name uncertain. Correction will appear as guilt. Beneath the line stood the initials HB. Hector's composure finally cracked. Initials prove nothing. The boy could have written them this morning. Then ask why the printer's date matches the placard order, Theodora said. Ask why the same wording appears on the modesties instruction. Ask why every document creates a bride, but names no woman clearly enough to protect her. Hector turned on her. You speak as though you were not the person who benefited most. You offered yourself before anyone asked. You entered the Duke's courtship, displaced your sister, and now produce witnesses to prove you were the only honest woman in the room. The accusation landed where he intended. Theodora felt the assembly turn toward her, hungry for the oldest story of all. A forgotten woman had wanted too much. Leopold did not step in front of her. He remained where she had asked. Theodora looked at Hector. I did offer myself. The admission unsettled the room. I believed usefulness might finally make me visible. I was wrong. That is why I refused a special license when the Duke prepared one without my consent. That is why there is no engagement now. You cannot expose ambition I have already named. Hector's mouth tightened. Convenient honesty. No, Augusta said. Everyone turned. She stepped into the central aisle. Her honesty was inconvenient to me. Lady Blanche whispered her name, but Augusta continued. I knew the announcement, said Miss A. Fairbourne, because either of us could be blamed. Mr. Bellingham told me that if His Grace chose Theodora, society could be made to believe she arranged the notice herself. I wore the veil anyway because I wanted the lie to make his choice impossible. Theodora held her sister's gaze. Augusta did not ask forgiveness. She simply stood inside the consequence. Hector's face lost color. You foolish girl. The insult completed what doubt had begun. You never meant me to be chosen, Augusta said. You meant someone to be trapped. Lady Verena stepped forward next. He promised me a settlement if I continued my claim after I began to doubt it. At first, I believed his message came from the Duke's household. Later, I continued because I feared public humiliation. Sir Reginald closed his eyes. When he opened them, his authority looked smaller than his regret. I knew Bellingham was applying pressure, he said. I chose not to ask how. I believed a Fairbourne marriage would restore the family's standing. Hector looked around the room and saw every convenient silence closing against him. You all used me, he said. You wanted certainty. I supplied it. You supplied dependence, Theodora replied. You created crises so families would believe only you could resolve them. His expression sharpened. And if I had succeeded, half the noble houses in London would have sought my judgment before arranging a match. There it was. Not merely money. Authority borrowed from fear. The Fairbourne settlement would have paid my commission. He continued. A successful Aldermere alliance would have opened every door closed to men without titles. Leopold spoke at last, because Theodora looked toward him. You mistook access for trust. Hector laughed once. And you mistook possession for protection. The blow struck true. Leopold accepted it. Yes, he said. The room went still. I began a special license inquiry after promising Miss Fairbourne I would not. I treated marriage to her as the fastest solution to a scandal. She was right to refuse me. He stepped beside the work frame, but no closer to Theodora. I made no promise to Lady Verena. I made no promise to Miss Augusta Fairbourne. I authorized no lace, chapel preparation, placard, or announcement. Miss Theodora Fairbourne owes me no consent, no gratitude, and no forgiveness. The Dowager Duchess ordered the sale stopped. The charitable committee withdrew every introduction extended to Hector. Merchants present refused further accounts in his name. Leopold's solicitor stated that claims for unpaid work, false representation, and damaged credit would proceed through the proper courts. Lady Blanche was removed from the exhibition committee and from control of Augusta's remaining season. Sir Reginald agreed before witnesses that Theodora's maternal property would be placed under independent trustees until every disputed item was returned. Augusta would leave London with Mrs. Hensley rather than be forced into a marriage intended to hide disgrace. Lady Verena agreed to issue a public correction and withdraw from the season. Hector stood alone while doors closed around him without a single servant laying a hand upon him. Respectability did not leave with noise. It simply stopped answering. When the room had nearly emptied, Theodora returned her mother's veil to the work frame. Leopold remained beside it. May I begin again? he asked. Not with a license, not with an announcement, with a morning call. Theodora looked at the man who had learned to stand near power without using it to take her answer. You may call tomorrow, she said, at the proper hour. 4 months later, Leopold Wycliffe arrived at the Fairbourne house at exactly 11 o'clock and waited in the drawing room until Theodora chose to enter. He had done the same each week since the closing sale. He came at proper hours. He brought no papers unless she had asked to see them. He wrote letters that contained questions rather than conclusions. Society found the pace absurd. Theodora found it necessary. A man could behave well for one afternoon beneath the gaze of a crowded assembly room. She wanted to know what he did when no scandal rewarded restraint. The answer came gradually when a society paper offered to restore his reputation by describing Theodora as the future Duchess of Aldermere. He refused permission without consulting her name into public usefulness. She learned of it from Mrs. Vale, not from him. When Sir Reginald began answering for her at dinner, Leopold did not silence him with rank. He simply turned to Theodora and asked, "What do you think?" When a hostess placed Augusta's old place card beside his at a music-hall, he moved neither card. He waited until Theodora chose another seat, then sat beside her without creating a scene. These acts were small enough to be honest. That mattered more than display. On the morning of his call, Theodora sat in the rear morning room with her mother's unfinished veil stretched across the narrow frame. The numbered bobbins lay arranged before her, though she had not worked the pattern in weeks. Sunlight entered through the tall sash window and revealed the open border where the final leaves should have been. Mrs. Vale, announced Leopold, then took her usual chair near the window with a volume she had no intention of reading. Leopold entered empty-handed. Theodora looked at him. You have brought nothing. I was advised that prepared objects can create pressure. You remember advice when it is unpleasant. It tends to remain memorable. He stopped beside the work table, but did not touch it. His gaze moved to the loosened threads. You have removed the final row of bobbins. Last night. Will you finish it? No. He waited. Months earlier, he would have offered an argument, an alternative, or a solution. Now, he asked, why? Theodora rested her fingers on the edge of the frame. Because finishing it would still make my mother's work serve a wedding. She could not choose for me. I want to remember what she began. I do not need to pretend she completed my future. Leopold looked at the missing border. Some people will call it unfinished. Some people called me forgotten. She met his eyes. They were wrong, too. A quiet warmth entered his expression. I have something to tell you. That sounds dangerously close to preparation. No documents are involved. Then proceed. He drew a chair closer but waited until she nodded before sitting. Yesterday, Lord Ashcombe suggested I should announce our engagement before Parliament rises. He said, delay encourages speculation. And what did you say? That speculation is not consent. Theodora studied him. Did you say that because you knew I would hear of it? No. How can I know? You cannot. Mrs. Vale can confirm Lord Ashcombe told her before I arrived. Mrs. Vale turned one page without looking up. He did. Theodora almost smiled. You have arranged independent witnesses now. I have learned that trust dislikes being asked to stand alone. There was humor in the answer, but not evasion. She looked down at the veil. You have changed. I am trying to. That is not always the same thing. No. He leaned back slightly. Change becomes real only when the person who was injured no longer has to supervise it. Theodora felt the words enter the room and settle there. He had not said them to impress her. He had learned them by failing. "Augusta wrote this morning," she said. "How is she? Living with Mrs. Hensley in Kent. She declined a proposal from a man she scarcely knew. Was he unsuitable? He was respectable. Then why refuse? Because she realized she wanted to accept only to prove she still could." Leopold's expression softened. That was honest. Painfully. Theodora reached for the folded letter beside the frame and read the final lines again. "I thought being chosen would prove I was worth more than you. I did not understand that I had been taught to need you beneath me. I am sorry." "Will you forgive her?" Leopold asked. "Not because she wrote one true letter. What will you do? Tell her forgiveness may begin, but trust requires time." "That sounds familiar. You have heard it before, repeatedly." This time Theodora did smile. The moment surprised them both. Leopold's answering smile was quieter, almost boyish beneath the restraint that usually defined him. For several seconds, the room held no scandal, no evidence, no competing claim, only sunlight, unfinished lace, and the ease of not needing to defend every silence. Theodora poured tea. She knew how he took it because he had once refused sugar and then spent an entire call pretending not to dislike the result. Today she added half a spoon without asking. He noticed. "You remembered. Do not become sentimental." It was an efficiency. "Of course, you may stay an additional half hour." The words left her before caution could turn them into something smaller. Leopold went still. "Because the tea requires supervision. Because I am asking." The distinction moved through him visibly. "Then I will stay." That was the moment Theodora understood her answer had begun before any proposal. Not because he had become perfect, not because scandal had ended, because she had invited him to remain when nothing demanded it. 6 days later, he called again at the same hour. This time, the unfinished veil had been removed from the frame. Theodora had folded it flat beneath glass in a simple wooden frame, leaving the missing border visible. It rested against the wall where sunlight could pass through the open pattern. Leopold stood before it for a long time. "You kept the absence," he said. "Yes, most people would hide it. Most people have hidden enough on my behalf." He turned toward her. Mrs. Vale sat near the open door. No velvet box waited in his hand. No ring appeared before the question. "I have considered several speeches," he said. "That sounds ominous. I discarded all of them. An improvement. I do not need you to rescue my name, repair my household, or prove that choosing you was wise." Theodora's breath caught, though she kept her expression steady. "A thorough list. I have had months to examine my errors." "Only months. I expect the education to continue." He came closer but stopped with enough space for refusal. "What I want is a wife who will tell me when protection becomes command, who will ask what authority costs the person expected to obey, and who will remain herself even when I find that inconvenient." "You make inconvenience sound romantic. With you it has become so." His voice lowered. "Will you marry me?" Theodora looked at the man who had once prepared a license before asking permission and now stood before her with nothing but a question. "And if I remain difficult, then I shall remain required to listen. Marriage will not make consultation optional. Marrying you will make consultation unavoidable. And you still ask." "I ask because of it." Theodora extended her hand. Leopold turned his palm upward and waited. She placed her hand in his. Only then did his fingers close gently around hers. "Yes," she said. Their engagement lasted 6 weeks. No announcement was printed until Theodora approved every word. The settlement protected her maternal property and named independent trustees. The wedding took place in the small chapel at Marehaven Hall before Mrs. Vale, Mrs. Hensley, Augusta, Sir Reginald, Mrs. Pell, Madame Lenoir, Daniel Price, and a handful of friends who had supported truth before it became fashionable. Lady Blanche attended under Mrs. Hensley's supervision and spoke little. Theodora did not wear her mother's veil. She commissioned a new one through Mrs. Pell, with orders divided among several reputable merchants, so no workshop depended upon Aldermere favour alone. The design contained no copied leaf, no hidden initial, and no borrowed promise. Augusta stood several feet from her mother in pale blue. When Theodora passed, Augusta did not ask for forgiveness. She whispered, "You look like yourself." It was enough for that day. Months later, the framed, unfinished veil hung in Theodora's private sitting room at Merehaven. Her new wedding veil rested folded inside an open box beneath it. Leopold entered after dinner and stopped beside her. "Do you regret walking into that drawing room?" he asked. Theodora looked at the missing border, where sunlight formed an open pattern across the floor. "I regret only that I thought I had to offer myself before anyone would ask what I wanted." Leopold looked at her, not at the lace. "What do you want now?" She gave him her hand. "To be chosen after I have answered." He lifted her fingers to his lips, then lowered them without holding her in place. Together, they stepped through the light, while the unfinished veil remained behind them, incomplete and entirely whole.